First of all, I wanted to welcome you to
you.
California. It's a big honor for me to meet you, and I know that people who are going to be hearing your message will be thrilled to see you in person here in the San Francisco Bay Area. You are here for a very specific reason.
True.
So tell me what that is.
Basically to say that the Philippines is open for business. The first plan in our platform was job generation. Our father put it best. Give me the job, I'll take care of my family's education and health needs. And those are also our problems. Actually, education is second, health is third, and judicial reform was fourth in our platform. So when we go home, we will be telling our people a lot of investments are coming our way, and very sizable investments in that, on top of the grant by the Millennium Challenge Corporation that assists us in really transforming our society. I come from, I come after an administration that was so fixed on retaining political power, and all decisions had political considerations, which normally were not the best method for determining appropriate solutions to particular problems.
Now, you've been through, because of your parents, and I hope you don't mind talking about your parents, I've admired their contributions. So from your perspective, what would you like to tell people in the Bay Area about your parents?
They serve as a role model, number one. They serve also as a source of inspiration. And perhaps I should thank the people of San Francisco. After my father was released from detention, and after Dallas, where he had his bypass operation, he recuperated here. So we had our first taste of freedom. We came from a martial law regime. Suddenly, we had all of the experiences of freedom once again, and complete freedom here in the Bay Area. Okay. Now, as I said, they're role models. They charted perhaps our ideology, which is centrist in origin. But more importantly, as far as I'm concerned, regardless of the difficulties I find myself in, when I remember what they had to go through and how they managed to succeed, then that serves to really push me on to say, look, what I'm undergoing is a pittance compared to what they had to undergo. And they succeeded. So that nurtures my drive to continue trying to plug away at all of the problems that have been left in my care.
And could you tell those problems to me, please, for people who aren't aware?
Okay. Number one, we have a $325 billion deficit for this year. And we were given something like 10% of the national budget to run the country for the 6 months. 10% meaning we can transfer funds. Otherwise, everything has been obligated already. So, and amongst the things that they left us, the country is visited by, on average, about 23 typhoons every year. We had a calamity fund. The calamity fund was used up even before we stepped into office. And the second typhoon out of the 23 happened during my watch already. So we've had to replenish it. But fortunately, with proper and good governance, in the second month in office, we've managed to post a surplus as far as the budget is concerned. But of course, it's a monthly account. There's still the deficit.
Baby steps.
I think we saved something like 24 billion for the account in August, pesos. And again, it tells us you can do a lot more if you do the right thing, as opposed to all of the wastage before. Again, jobs for our people. We have something like close to 10% of our populace outside of the country. Most leave the country because there are no job opportunities for them there. It's not just a question of greener pastures. In certain instances, it's the only pasture available to them. We're trying to make the situation different, wherein if you decide to become what we call an overseas foreign worker, then it is by choice rather than by necessity. That was left to us also. And I can go on and on and on.
Well, I understand that a third of the population lives on just $1 a day. Is that improved?
I'm more concentrated on the fact that about 4.6 million families, and if you assume about 5 and say about 20 million or so, of our 100 million live below the poverty line. And that is why the focus, the Millennium Challenge Corporation helps. There is assistance from both the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank. And we have allocated enough funds to enroll half of the 4.6 million in what we call conditional cash transfers. They are required, they're given an assistance for the daily sustenance. They're required interns, conditional in the sense that they have to keep their student, their young as students in school, number one, and they have to get the regular medical checkups to get the proper inoculations, so on and so forth. We're hoping that in about 2 years or so, we'll be able to cover all the 4.6 million, give them a leg up, and at the same time, the children in school get the knowledge, get the skills, get a marketable skill inside of them, and be able to undertake jobs that will uplift their lives.
I understand that you have said that the Philippines is open for business and that you want education, technology, science, and engineering.
True. What do we say open for business? Let's assume you had a company you want to start up. First thing you have to do is register the corporate name. Previously, you could go online, but at the end of the process, there were 3 people who would do the checking, whether or not somebody else had registered the name. So more often than not, you'd get a denial of the application, whether you'd have to go to our Department of Trade and Industry. Then you'd suffer 4 to 8 hour days interminably until you manage to stumble on a name that nobody has ever registered or doesn't sound like another name that somebody else has registered. So how can you say a system like that is conducive to doing business? There was a point in time, 36 forms had to be filled out. So we're working to make the registration process minutes, where we've cut down on a lot of fields. The 8 pages of application forms will be reduced to 1, the 36 will be reduced to 6. And again, government will be there, help all of these businesses. There are a lot of companies, big companies that have started 100 years ago. And one has to be amazed at their perseverance to have stayed. We want to reverse the process. We want to make sure they come in, they provide us with jobs, they grow our economy. Then we treat them in the Filipino manner of being totally hospitable and treat them as one of us. You have helped us. There is in Tagalog it's called utang na loob. In English, the closest would be debt of gratitude. The people who have helped you, you owe it to them to treat them properly, correctly. And again, if you're treated as family, then we hope that their nurturing us leads to our nurturing them. It becomes a mutually beneficial situation.
You talked at the United Nations, you said, it is when nations reach across their borders, the immense problems of our age begin to be manageable.
The Philippines, for instance, global climate change. Our weather bureau is already warning us that we might have severe super typhoons at the end of the year. They point to Pakistan as having unseasonal weather. It used to be the portion of Pakistan when it was still Bangladesh, when it was still part of Pakistan, would have most of the flooding. Now it's Pakistan itself. And if in terms of the global warming, what do we contribute for the carbon footprint? The numbers they tell me is less than 1%, a percentage of a percent. But we get all of this. We're at risk, or we're not, perhaps we're even at more severe risk than those that have contributed most to global warming. So
you become the victims then of global warming.
So we're saying, isn't it about time that this will persist? If our country, for instance, loses more of its forest cover, then there will be less mitigation for all of these typhoons that are coming around. Then it negatively impacts our neighbors, and then eventually the rest of the world. So if we are isolated, if we are concentrated only on our concerns, that is a recipe for disaster for everybody. So those that can assist should assist. Those that are being assisted should be very particular about how this assistance is done. It shouldn't be wasted.
Countries don't operate in a vacuum.
Right. Hey, you have pandemics, you have the threat of terrorism, you have global climate change. Name a problem that is endemic just to one area. That was the main thesis for the speech. We are an archipelago, but our problems are not specific to us.
Before we run out of time, I wanted to ask you about the hostage situation. You made some remarks this week about that. You were very upset about the way that all came down, and what happened?
Why was I upset? During my mother's incumbency, which ended in 1992, so about 18 years now, but towards the middle of it, the Presidential Security Group demonstrated the exact same skills necessary to have effected a successful termination of the hostage taking. And it was a moving bus. And again, close to a quarter century ago. And we have new units that are even better at this point in time. The knowledge is there. The instructions actually were given to certain officials to use that unit in case it was necessary to do so. It didn't happen. We had people who didn't think about the plan. We had people who were overseeing them who should have vetted the plan and who also were in possession of the knowledge necessary to say that would not work. The results, I can't say that, I can't guarantee the results would have been different if we had deployed a more capable unit. Unfortunately, the instructions were not carried out. So there will be a lot of penalties that will be rendered to the culpable people as soon as they get home. Now, there was a report done. It tried to lay the scientific basis for all of its findings and conclusions. I've tasked my executive secretary and the chief legal counsel to go over it and prepare the necessary charges as warranted. And then, point being, this thing shouldn't happen again. Now, perhaps in fairness, such a situation where we have a lone hostage taker is not a unique experience in my country. It normally is resolved, even on a precinct level, very successfully. There are so many factors here, amongst them media's role in making it more difficult for the hostage negotiator to get in touch with them. They had to compete, in a sense, for airspace that might have been contributory to this outcome. But the bottom line was, we are more capable than what was demonstrated there. And if people had followed the orders, it would have been a lot better. Now, of course, we were hoping that, you had a hostage taker who released hostages even before the start of negotiations, which I think is unique. He gave up more than a third of the people with practically no concessions on his part that he got. So that led us to believe that this could have been done by waiting him out, by appealing to some sort of reason from him. But then there was that dramatic change in temperament. And again, part of the fault was some people did not communicate this information of the change. I caught it on TV, and I didn't want to micromanage. So I was hoping that they would tell me if there were changes, etc. But again, information flow is something we will also be working on. There is already a situation, presidential situation, that apprises me of all of these developments. But unfortunately, it was set up afterwards.
The problem that happened, this terrible thing that happened to your father and your mother took over and now you, and the danger that you experience, the severity here is very tight. And I understand you've already been shot at and wounded once. Yes, and you still have the bullet?
In my neck. And pieces of shrapnel that make metal detectors sometimes go crazy. But at the end, I guess we got it from both parents. We're fatalistic. The way my mother would put it would be, if it's your time, it's your time. The only thing, I guess, all of us that ever requested was that once we go, that you were responsible for a certain amount of change, that it meant something. It wasn't a useless exercise, and I think we're headed in that direction.
So you're not afraid? You have a job to do.
When I went home after my father was assassinated, we came from Boston. That was when I crossed my Rubicon. And I found myself in a situation where I couldn't accept, after all of my father's sacrifices, that no changes were done. That would have made everything meaningless, and I couldn't accept it. So from that time to now, it's just a continuation. At the end of it, so long as there's a change, a positive change for our people, then it would all have been worth it. It would have meaning, and that's the thing that I'm striving for.
My final question is, how can the Silicon Valley and the Bay Area help you in your cause?
Well, the technology transfer would really be fantastic. We were talking to a lot of our philams who are present, and they had a forum this morning. There were suggestions that they just came from. We're going to effect a roadmap wherein their knowledge, perhaps some resources, and more focus from our end, from the government's end, will be able to just take that increase in our engineering science community and be the conduit for technology to be used to develop it.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Maybe we just get a couple more pictures of us together.